There's a Bitcoin optimism and there's a fiat nihilism that I think you
Yeah.
see. And that's sort of how I've started to look at, and not that all of us, again, are not guilty of occasionally perhaps seeming a little nihilistic in the way that we discuss the ills of the fiat world. But ultimately, the Bitcoiners that I meet, yourself very much included, and all those that I've had the pleasure of meeting, are so incredibly optimistic about the future. And you don't see that same sort of just
Yeah.
almost ruthless optimism hardly anywhere else. It's always, yeah, we talk about the problems, but we do it in the context of this is why this solution can actually, Bitcoin fixes
Yeah.
this. Instead of just here's the problem and we're going to blame the other out group
Sure.
within our society.
Sure.
I don't know. How do you think about that? Just like, and has that been your experience too with just it's optimism to a fault with Bitcoiners? It seems.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think there's really interesting angles on kind of both of those. Like, what is it about kind of fiat or just modern society that is so nihilistic, and how does that show up? And also, like, what is the optimism that you're pointing at in Bitcoiners? I think both of those are fascinating. The modernity one, call it fiat, call it modernity, whatever it is. I think it's, and the only reason I kind of like needle on the fiat word is because it almost implies that fiat was the cause of whatever that thing is. And I think that that can be true, that cannot be true, or that can be partially true. But I think particularly when we're talking about this sort of like modern nihilism, it is interwoven, I think, in a lot of things. I think there's many, many components there, and but it's deep and it's true, and like that observation is right on the money. Like that is true about how this world out there. There is a deep, deep current of like nihilism and like atheistic reductionism. And I don't mean that to say like, oh, like whether the Christian God is, real or not real, but I mean this almost like metaphysical atheism where it's just materialism. Like the only thing which can possibly exist is just these discrete forms, this gross matter, and any sort of argument to the contrary is like airy fairy, nonsense that there's no substance there. And I take issue with that so heavily because it is utterly unprovable. Like it is utterly, wholeheartedly, substantially, you cannot prove that. It's this widespread assumption that is passed off as fact that the only thing that exists is matter, is this discrete stuff, and you die, you're dead, it's all nonsense. Um, and so this kind of like ideological current, right? Like it runs through the world, and it just dismantles everything. It dismantles the values. It dismantles anything which transcends, anything which has higher purpose, anything with that organizes, that inspires, and it reduces it all down to like meaningless atoms, particles, brain signals, neurochemicals. You don't actually love your partner. You're just having oxytocin go on in your brain. Like you don't actually you don't even see your child. That's just a hallucination of, brain currents, and it's all fake and it's all constructed, right? And you piece apart this ideology, and it's more nihilistic than I think anyone can even like you can't even comprehend the depths and the just the tragedy of this profound, this all-encompassing nihilism. It is the reduction of everything. It's miserable. It's utterly miserable, and it's actually funny. I think this almost was manifest in a recent kind of Twitter. I don't know if you saw this. It wasn't really in Bitcoin world, but people were debating about Dune 2, the second Dune movie. And part of the like Dune story, the author Frank Herbert, he talked about this. It's true to the book in many ways. Like You have this kind of messianic figure in Paul Atreides. But the book is kind of about the dangers of messianic figures. You're not really supposed to it's supposed to be a warning about him. But everyone walks out of that movie like that was the sickest shit I've ever seen, cosmic jihad. And like Herbert had to deal with this, that everyone liked the character that was supposed to be a cautionary tale. And, it speaks to, I think, this theme where like people want this flattened, reduced, castrated secularism. And yet, as humans, there's just this deep hunger for, why do people like Paul in Dune 2? Well, it's destiny. It's a mission. It's a purpose. He's chosen. There's suddenly this inspirational thing, and rather than disparage that and try to like filter it through this deep like nihilism, what if we paid more attention to that? What if we looked at like, why is it that people have this deep hunger for something to believe in? And I kind of went off on a tangent with this, but like that brings us back to Bitcoin in some ways and the optimism of Bitcoiners, right? Like, because I think what Bitcoin is for many people is Michael Saylor says this, it's hope, right? It speaks to that. You want to believe in something. You want to be on the side of something. You want to be like, this thing is good and I'm going to fight for it. And this other mindset is like, but how can we really know if it's good? It's really beyond our, what is good? What is good? You can't know. Like, it's wild.